Hello to anyone listening and welcome to The Patriotic Communist. This is Max Rice, and this is the podcast where I advocate for a socialist revolution in the United States of America and where I analyze current events from a far-left perspective. We are in the historical context where we choose socialism or barbarism, and that has never been more true. Sorry this episode is being posted a little bit late. I should have posted it yesterday, but it's out anyways. It's free, so it's no big deal. But yeah, there's a presidential election in the United States that is coming up very soon, which I'm sure most of the listeners of this podcast are aware of. I think it makes sense for me to spend an entire episode elaborating my feelings about this upcoming election and who I am planning on voting for. Before I get into the specifics about the 2020 presidential race, I want to mention that our voting system is absurd and undemocratic in a number of ways. One of the large problems with our presidential elections is the Electoral College, which is a mess, and it is a mess on purpose. The Electoral College is why Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton in 2016, even though Clinton had a few million more votes than he had. The Electoral College also causes people in certain states to have much more influence with their votes than a person in another state, just mathematically. For example, someone who lives in Wyoming apparently has a vote that's more than twice as valuable than a vote coming from California. This is part of the reason we are stuck in a two-party system where both of the viable options to the public are controlled by major corporations. So I do not believe that we can vote our problems away. I truly believe that this country needs a workers' revolution, which I have made very clear on this podcast. With that being said, it is still important to flex every piece of influence that you can towards a better world, in my opinion. So I'm going to vote, and I do believe it's important to vote, but I will never vote for a Republican or a Democrat in national politics ever. Perhaps ever in local politics either. They're both the parties of the owning class, and they're both playing for the same team ultimately. Personally, I'm going to vote for Joseph Kishore, who is the nominee for the Socialist Equality Party. And close to the election, I'm going to make a podcast episode going over his platform briefly and explaining why I think he would make a great president for this great country of the United States of America. This episode, though, I'm going to go over why I am not voting for Donald Trump or Joe Biden in some further detail. So I'm going to go over why Donald Trump and Joe Biden are both war criminals and monsters. They are both a unique sort of evil, and I'm going to go over what they have done in their political lives, such as the policies they have implemented and supported. So first, let's talk about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a politician who fundamentally is a reactionary, and this is something Donald Trump has in common with Joe Biden. In his 2016 campaign, he claimed he wanted to end the conflicts in Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq. But predictably and nearly immediately, when Donald Trump was elected, he became a war hawk just as vicious as the Bush or the Obama regimes. I say this was predictable because the intelligence community in this country have clearly been out of control and pulling many strings in politics for a long time, and they are hell-bent on these wars. Not to mention the war and oil industry oligarchs who pull lots of strings in politics as well, and they also have a considerable influence on their own. So there are too many examples of horrendous and criminal foreign policy from the last 4 years of Trump to even get into it all. But just some examples I'm going to list include the assassination of Soleimani, who was a huge fighter of ISIS in Iran and beloved by Iran because he was seen as one of the leading figures in protecting them from fucking ISIS, and which also, this assassination brought us to the brink of an internationally devastating war. More things that he's done include the airstrike against the Syrian government, which was also extremely dangerous in terms of escalation. We obviously played a part in the coup in Bolivia. The violent policies against Venezuela that we enact, which make it hard for them to get food and medicine. We do the same thing to Iran. We support the bombing campaign by Saudi Arabia against Yemen, and we have our own little bombing campaign in Yemen, a country that's on the brink of annihilation. We also have aggressive policies towards Pakistan and countless more countries that Donald Trump has not stopped. He's ramped up our violent American imperialism. The list would also include our relationship with Saudi Arabia and how we assassinate people with drone warfare all over the place, and Trump ramped this up even more. Although Obama normalized drone warfare, and Obama was guilty of almost every heinous policy that Trump is guilty for, Donald Trump still was able to take it to the next level. There's a lot more I could say, but like I said, it is too many horrible things to even count. Donald Trump is a dangerous commander-in-chief of our military. But I do want to be clear that I am not pinning these policies completely on Trump. Obama and the presidents before him and all of the corruption over the years is why we have Donald Trump. And it is not like he started these aggressive campaigns. Capitalism has been failing for the average American for a long time now. And the policies before Trump are the only reason he's able to get away with such awful things. And they're also the main reasons he was able to win the presidency. And when it comes to a lot of this war hawkish behavior, these orders aren't coming from Donald Trump's ideology or his philosophy or his orders. They're coming from the permanent state, the people that have been there since 9/11 and before, the people that have been manipulating the country's national defense. It's those same people that are simply manipulating Trump like it's no one's business and easily. And Donald Trump doesn't care, and he's letting them ramp it up to extreme extents. And just to highlight how horrible the drone bombing under Donald Trump was, I'm going to highlight an article published in the World Socialist website on the 29th of January of 2020. And this is an article written by Niles Niemuth. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but I'll put the article in the description of this podcast, so check it out. It's a bit old. It's from the beginning of this year. And it says this, quote,
"The U.S. Air Force reported Monday that it carried out more airstrikes in Afghanistan in 2019 than any year in the last decade. Manned and unmanned aircraft dropped 7,423 bombs, topping the previous decade high of 7,362 in 2018. Nearly 2 decades into its criminal neo-colonial occupation, the United States government is dropping an average of 20 bombs on the country per day. The rise in airstrikes has resulted in an increase of civilian casualties at the hands of the U.S. military, with the UN report from December finding that American attacks from January to October had claimed the lives of 579 civilians and wounded 306, a third higher than 2018.
End quote. Isn't that interesting? Both the years that they're talking about in that article were under Trump. We were breaking records with our bombing campaigns. They killed hundreds of innocent people in less than 3 months. And this was never talked about on the news. No one in the Democratic Party goes after Trump for this shit. They don't even mention it because they are complicit. We have a gangster government that is willing to play dumb when it comes to vulnerable people in the Middle East. Why the fuck are we in Afghanistan? None of them can coherently answer that question. That is insane, and everyone that voted for Trump because he was anti-war, I really hope you recognize that he failed you. We are still in Afghanistan. We have actually ramped up the bombing recently. This article is from January of this year. Donald Trump is also incredibly corrupt. His climate change policy is horrifying, and so is his general economic policy. The tax cuts he passed was an oligarch's wet dream, and he presided and signed off over the COVID-19 corporate coup called the CARES Act, which was the largest upwards transfer of wealth in human history. He also has many accusations of being a sexual predator. Donald Trump is also showing his authoritarian tendencies lately in a very disturbing fashion, and he's made it clear that he will allow the deep state to really run the show when it comes to foreign policy and national security. So all in all, Donald Trump is a horrible choice for president. He has done a terrible job, and he is dangerous to world peace in a unique way when it comes to climate change and foreign policy. But Joe Biden is kind of the same kind of unique danger when it comes to Donald Trump with foreign policy. I would never vote for a person like Donald Trump. My morals would never allow it. I can never consent to the rule of a man like Donald Trump. And I can never consent to his record as a commander-in-chief and as the chief executive of America. Anyways, now time to talk about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a former segregationist. He has a very offensive and controversial history on this subject, and he is also one of the authors of the crime bill, which has been described by many as the new Jim Crow, due to how it caused impoverished communities to be locked up in horrific numbers, and he still defends the crime bill to this day. Joe Biden is also very likely a rapist. He has a very credible accusation of rape against him. The details are graphic and sensitive, but if you want the details on that, just watch the interview Tara Reid did with Katie Halper. Joe Biden oversaw a lot of the foreign policy during Obama's administration, and before that, he was already a bloodthirsty maniac. Joe Biden did not simply vote for the Iraq War, but he was one of the most important players in Congress that enabled the illegal and devastating invasion and war to happen. There's a good chance Joe Biden would be just as bad or even worse with his foreign policy than Donald Trump. There's no reason to think he would not ruthlessly pursue United States hegemony by violent means. Joe Biden, too, would act similar to Trump, basically as an empty vessel for nefarious interests when it comes to foreign policy. This is also how Bush and Obama governed as well. And Joe Biden refuses to support Medicare for all, despite the pandemic creating a new national health emergency, despite the economic crash causing millions of additional Americans to lose their health care, and despite Medicare for All being overwhelmingly popular and his primary opponent, Bernie Sanders, making it his main issue. Despite all of these things, Joe Biden won't fucking budge. In fact, he's more conservative than even Hillary Clinton was when it comes to healthcare. And this is an important subject because, okay, so Donald Trump is obviously against Medicare for All too. So is Joe Biden. That means they're okay with more than 50,000 Americans dying from poverty every year directly because of fucking medical bills. That's a fact. Any one of you guys can look that up. How many people a year die in America from lack of money to pay their medical bill? The number is more than 50,000. Joe Biden is barely any different than Trump, to be honest. Joe Biden is directly hostile to the American people. He is an enemy of the common man's interests, but so is Trump. If you vote for either of them because of the lesser of two evils argument, then fine. But you need to think about how the system interprets your vote. The system does not care why you are voting. The system does not know why you voted the way you did. So the system sees a vote for Joe Biden or a vote for Trump as giving consent to United States imperialism, systematic racism, corruption, and the oligarchy in general. The neo-fascist state that is the United States of America, and Congress, the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the corporations all working together and acting hostile to the American people. A vote for a third party is not a vote for Trump. That is absurd. Nobody owns your vote. People are being presumptuous and ignorant when they say that. A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Joe Biden. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for Donald Trump. The same way that a vote for Howie Hawkins is a vote for Howie Hawkins. He's the candidate for the Green Party, by the way. And a vote for Joseph Kishore is a vote for Joseph Kishore, which is a vote for the Socialist Equality Party and is a vote for the international socialist revolution that we desperately need. It really is not very complicated. That's how voting works. You vote for a candidate, that's who you're fucking voting for. It really is not very complicated again, and I think voter shaming is truly a shame in itself. I'm going to vote for Joseph Kishore for the Socialist Equality Party. I'm going to vote for the international socialist revolution, and that is the message that I'm going to send to the system. I'm going to send the message that I am fighting back and I'm not going to accept their obscene and restricted phony version of democracy. And that is a message that I am proud of. Vote for a candidate that you actually believe in. Otherwise, don't vote. Don't be complicit in all the murder we commit overseas. If you are not proud of how you vote, don't do it. Don't vote out of fear like so many people will try to convince you to do. With that being said, I never judge on a personal level based on who you vote for, especially with such a broken democracy that is filled to the brim with propaganda. I'm just giving my advice and my peace of mind about the subject. Who you vote for and why you do it is your decision and your decision alone. Don't let anyone guilt you for it. Anyways, that is all I have for you guys today. As always, stay safe and stay vigilant. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Patriotic Communist. All of the music you heard in this podcast was produced and performed by me, Max Rice, and if you would like to check it out, just search Max Rice on any streaming platform. That's MAXRICE. Yes, like the food rice. This is Max Rice signing off.
We're all distracted by media. The misdirection of attention benefits big powers. I mentioned y'all try to lessen the questions and attentions. Money equals power. We gotta kill this connection. These force-fed concepts make no sense. How y'all hating immigrants and we controlled by the 1%. Zombified by screens. Dehumanization comes easily. All I hear are American supremacists, but this line of thought is a normality, full of fallacies while we stay combative overseas. Laws and more laws. As far as I can see, and no one cares because of the mass distractions. We're expected to not question how the government uses our taxes unless it's helping people. Then they ramble like that's all to see. Though we need to free the people, we need a fucking hero. We need some MLK, FDR style of change. We're full of pain and ignorant, but won't live in fear. Though we need some yellow vest, bulletproof vests and bold claims. We need that fire in our hearts that can't be tamed. We need to reject and correct our collective violent actions, but it won't happen. Fuck. We're all distracted.